Okay, let's unpack this. Have you ever been there? Trying to rent that first apartment, maybe get a car loan, and you just hit this wall.
Yeah.
The one where they just say, sorry, no credit history. You feel responsible. You manage your money okay, but nope, doesn't matter. You haven't borrowed before.
It's so common, especially I think for younger folks or anyone new to the whole system. It really does feel like that catch-22.
Right. You need credit to get credit.
Exactly.
And the material we're digging into today, it really gets to the heart of that. It talks about credit not just as like a number, but as a passport to financial freedom, which honestly feels spot on when you're stuck on the outside looking in.
It really is. It's like the key that unlocks so much in, modern life.
Totally. So our mission here in this deep dive is basically to take this guide, one that's specifically for building credit from zero, from scratch, and just boil it down.
Get to the essentials.
Yeah, pull out the absolute must-know steps, the core insights, give you a clear map based only on what the source material tells us.
Right. So we'll look at why this whole passport thing matters, what those first crucial moves are when you've got nothing, how to actually build on that, the big mistakes to steer clear of.
Oh, yeah.
And even like a little peek at where credit building might be headed.
Okay. Ready to go from like credit invisible to credit confident.
Let's do it.
All right. Foundation first. This guide says, at its core, credit is basically trust.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Lenders are essentially betting you'll pay them back.
And your credit history, that stuff in your credit report, boiled down to that credit score, usually that 300 to 850 number.
Right.
That's how they measure that trust. It's like your financial track record.
Exactly. Past behavior predicting future reliability, basically.
And this trust, it has like real world consequences. It's not just about getting loans, though that's huge mortgages, car loans, personal loans. But what the source really hammers home is the interest rates. Good credit means lower rates. And man, over the life of a big loan, that's serious savings. We're talking thousands, maybe tens of thousands of dollars.
Absolutely. Big money. And beyond borrowing, the source points out other things too, like renting an apartment. Landlords often check credit.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Some jobs even look at it. And utilities, phone contracts. You might avoid those big security deposits if you've got decent credit. It just makes a lot of everyday stuff smoother.
So, okay, it clearly matters a lot. Now, the source breaks down the FICO score, right? The common one. Understanding this seems key because it tells you what actions actually count.
Yeah, knowing the ingredients helps. What's really striking is how much weight falls on just a couple of things. The source says payment history, just paying your bills on time, is the biggest chunk. 35%.
Wow, 35% just for being on time.
Yep. It's the single most important thing you can do, period.
Okay, so that's over a third right there. What's next?
Amounts owed, or what they call credit utilization. That's 30%. Basically, how much of your available credit are you using? Keeping that number low is super important.
Why low? Does it signal you're not, like, maxed out?
Exactly. It shows you're not overextended, that you can manage credit without relying on all of it.
Okay, so payment history and how much you owe. That's what, 65% of the score already?
Right there. Huge chunk.
What else makes up the score?
So the source lists length of credit history next at 15%. Basically, older accounts in good standing help.
Makes sense. Longer track record.
Then there's credit mix at 10%. Having different types of credit, like cards and loans, can help eventually, but it's less critical when you're just starting out.
Okay.
And finally, new credit, also 10%. That looks at how recently you've applied for credit. Too many applications quickly can be a negative.
Gotcha. So the big takeaway seems to be focus like a laser on paying on time and keeping those balances low.
That's where you get the most bang for your buck, especially starting out. Nail those two.
All right, so we know why it matters, what affects the score. Now, the big question, how do you even start if you've got literally nothing? The source gives some solid first steps.
Yeah. Step one, according to the guide, is just check if you do have a file somewhere. You might, without even knowing it.
Oh, how?
Maybe an old student loan you kind of forgot about, or maybe you were an authorized user on a parent's card way back when. You can check for free reports from the Big Three, Experian, Equifax, TransUnion at annualcreditreport.com.
Good tip. And the guide says if you really are starting completely fresh, the report might just say something like insufficient credit history or no file found.
Exactly. Which leads right into what the source suggests is often the best starting tool, the secured credit card.
Ah, yes, the secured card. Explain how that works again.
Sure. It's pretty clever.
Yeah.
You put down a cash deposit, maybe like $200, $500, something like that.
Right.
And that deposit becomes your credit limit.
Huh.
So the bank isn't taking much risk because your money secures the line.
So you're kind of borrowing against your own cash. But the key is the activity gets reported.
That's the magic. You're spending, and more importantly, your payments on that card get reported to the credit bureaus. It starts building that history.
And the source is really specific about how to use it.
Right. Use it for small things, gas, coffee, whatever. But the absolute crucial part, pay the balance in full every single month. Don't carry debt on it.
Pay in full. Got it. And there was a best practice tip, too, about utilization.
Yes. Connects right back to that 30% factor. Keep your balance on that secured card under 30% of your limit. So if you have a $500 limit, try not to have more than $150 when the statement closes.
Okay.
And actually, the source says, ideally, keep it under 10%. So under $50 on a $500 limit.
Wow, that low.
Yeah, it really strongly signals responsible management, even with a small limit. Helps that utilization score component right from the get-go.
Okay, solid advice. But what if someone can't easily put down, say, $500 for a deposit? Does the source offer other ways to start?
It does. Another route is becoming an authorized user on someone else's card.
How does that work?
You need someone you trust, like a parent or family member who has really good credit themselves.
Right.
They add you to one of their existing credit card accounts. The key, the source points out, is that their good payment history and low utilization on that card can then start showing up on your credit report.
So you sort of piggyback on their good habits.
Kind of, yeah.
Ah.
And the pro tip here is crucial. Make sure the person has had the card a long time, always pays on time, and keeps the balance really low.
And you're not actually responsible for paying their bill.
Correct. You're just benefiting from their positive history being associated with you. It can be a good way to get some history started without needing your own account initially.
Okay, that makes sense. What's the third option mentioned? Something called a credit builder loan.
Yeah, this one's interesting. It works kind of backwards from a normal loan.
Backwards.
You apply for a small loan, maybe $500 or $1,000, often from a credit union or an online lender. But, and here's the twist, you don't get the money right away.
Oh, so where does it go?
It's held in a locked savings account for you. Then you make regular monthly payments towards that loan amount over a set period, maybe 6 to 24 months.
Ah, I see. So you're proving you can make consistent payments.
Exactly. You're building that positive payment history on an installment loan. The lender reports those payments to the credit bureaus.
And then what happens at the end?
Once you've made all the payments, the full loan amount from that locked account is released to you. So you get the money back, plus you've built a credit history.
Clever. So secured card, authorized user, credit builder loan, those are the main ways the source says to get your foot in the door?
Pretty much the standard starting points.
Okay, so once you have that first account, maybe the secured card,
Yeah.
how do you go from just having a file to actually building a solid score and, confidence?
It really comes down to consistency and just good financial habits, building on those FICO factors we talked about.
Like paying on time.
Absolutely number one. The source really stresses. Pay on time. Every single time. No exceptions. Setting up automatic payments is probably the easiest way to make sure that happens.
Yeah, good idea. And keeping that utilization low still?
Still critical. Keep those balances well under 30%, ideally lower, even as you maybe graduate to unsecured cards later.
Right. What else?
The source also warns against going application crazy. Don't apply for a whole bunch of cards or loans all at once.
Why not?
Each application triggers a hard inquiry on your report. Too many of those in a short time can slightly lower your score and make lenders nervous. It looks like you might be desperate for credit.
Okay, pace yourself. The guide also mentioned something about credit mix, having different types of credit. Is that important early on?
It can help your score over the long term, having both revolving credit like cards and installment loans like a car loan or maybe a mortgage eventually. But the source suggests it's not something to actively chase right at the beginning just for the sake of mix.
So let it happen naturally.
Pretty much, yeah. As your financial life evolves, it's interesting the source mentions an experience stat. People with top-tier scores like 800 plus often have like 7 or more open accounts.
7?
Yeah, and decades of credit history. It really shows that building truly excellent credit isn't a quick sprint. It's a marathon of responsible behavior over a long, long time.
Wow. Decades and multiple accounts. That definitely puts things in perspective. Okay, another key thing the source highlights is monitoring your credit. Why is checking it regularly so important?
Well, a few big reasons. First, errors happen. The source notes they're surprisingly common on credit reports, and an error could be unfairly dragging down your score.
Good point.
Second, identity theft or fraud. Spotting weird activity early is crucial. And third, it's just motivating. You can track your progress, see how your good habits are paying off, watch that score, hopefully tick upward.
Makes sense. And the guide listed some free tools for this.
Yeah, things like Credit Karma, Experian has its own app with Boost, Mint, MyFICO. Plenty of ways to keep an eye on things without paying.
Okay. And one more strategy mentioned for growing credit once you have a bit of history, asking for a credit line increase.
Yes. This is a smart move, usually after maybe 6 to 12 months of using your first card responsibly.
And how does that help? It goes back to utilization again, doesn't it?
Exactly. The source explains it really clearly. Let's say you have that $500 limit secured card, and you typically have a $150 balance when the statement cuts. Your utilization is 30%, $150, $500.
Right.
Now, if you ask for and get a credit line increase to $1,000, but your spending stays the same, that same $150 balance is now only 15% utilization, $150 to $1,000.
Ah, lower percentage, same spending.
Precisely. That lower utilization ratio looks much better to the scoring models and can give your score a nice little boost. It's a practical way to improve one of the biggest score factors without changing your spending habits.
That's a really useful tactic. You know, it helps hearing how this actually plays out for real people. The source shared a couple of stories. Sarah, the college student.
Right. Sarah's story is pretty classic. Started with that secured card in college, used it for small stuff like groceries, paid it off religiously every month, focused.
And it worked.
Yeah, within about a year, the source says her score hit 720. That's considered good. And that score was enough for her to get approved for a regular, unsecured rewards card.
Nice upgrade.
And, importantly, to finance her first car at a decent interest rate. She apparently said it made her feel in control of her money, finally.
That's powerful. And then there was Ali, an immigrant, starting totally from scratch in Canada.
Yeah. Ali's story shows another path. He actually used two tools, a credit builder loan and a secured card simultaneously.
Oh, interesting. Double strategy.
He was really diligent, followed all the advice, paid on time, kept balances low, monitored his progress, and the result, in about 2 years, he bent his score up to 760. That's excellent.
Wow, 2 years to excellent.
And with that score, he was able to get not just a car loan, but also a mortgage for a house, both with really competitive low rates.
These stories really drive it home, don't they? Starting from absolute zero, it's not like a life sentence. It's a phase you can definitely navigate if you're consistent.
Totally. They show the real-world payoff for putting in that effort. Building that financial identity opens doors.
Absolutely. And just as vital as knowing what to do is knowing what not to do. The source spends some time busting myths and highlighting common pitfalls.
Yeah, some common misunderstandings out there. A big one they tackle. The idea that you need to carry a balance, like go into debt to build credit.
Oh man, I've heard that one so many times.
Right. And it's just false.
Yeah.
Completely wrong. Carrying a balance just means you're paying interest, which costs you money.
So what's the right way?
The best way is to use the card for planned purchases, then pay the statement balance off in full every month. You get the positive payment history, you keep utilization low, and you pay zero interest. That's the win-win.
Okay, good clarification. Another myth, checking your own score hurts it.
Also false. Checking your own score yourself, using those free tools we mentioned, that's a soft inquiry. It has absolutely no impact on your score.
So only when a lender checks it counts.
Right. When you formally apply for credit, that's a hard inquiry. And those can have a small temporary impact. But checking it yourself, check away. It's smart.
And what about income? Do you need to make a lot of money?
Nope. Income is not part of the credit score calculation itself. Now, obviously, lenders look at your income when deciding if you can afford a loan and how much they'll lend you.
Sure, for the approval.
Right. But the score itself doesn't factor in your salary.
Okay, myths busted. Now, what about the big mistakes? The source points out some real score killers. Number one seems to be missing payments.
Oh, absolutely. The worst thing you could do, especially when you're starting out. The source mentions just one late payment can knock your score down significantly, like potentially 100 points or even more.
Ouch. One mistake, big drop.
Huge drop. Remember, payment history is 35% of the score. Don't mess it up.
Okay. What else? Maxing out cards?
Yeah. Running up high balances, even if you pay on time eventually, really hurts that utilization ratio. It signals risk to lenders. Keep it low, ideally below 30%.
And closing old accounts, I thought tidying up would be good.
Counterintuitive, right? But the source advises against closing your oldest accounts if they're in good standing.
Why is that?
2 reasons. It shortens the average age of your credit history, that 15% factor, and it reduces your overall available credit, which can instantly increase your utilization ratio if you have balances elsewhere. Generally, better to keep them open, maybe use them lightly once in a while.
Interesting. Okay. And the last mistake mentioned was applying for too much credit too quickly.
Yeah, we touched on that. Those multiple hard inquiries ding your score,
Yeah.
and it just looks risky. Space out your applications if you need multiple lines of credit. Don't rush it.
Got it. So, looking forward, the source briefly mentions things are changing, evolving, might get easier to build credit in the future, mentions fintech.
Yeah, it's an interesting area. It mentions companies like Self, Chime Credit Builder, Grain. These newer tech companies are creating tools, often app-based, designed to make credit building simpler, more accessible. Especially helpful maybe for younger people or gig workers with less traditional income.
And what about using different kinds of data, not just loans and cards?
That's a big one, alternative credit data. Programs like Experian Boost and Ultra FICO are starting to incorporate things like on-time rent payments, utility bills, even phone or streaming service payments, like Netflix.
Seriously, paying your Netflix bill could help your credit.
Potentially, yes, through these specific programs. For someone with no traditional credit file, showing you reliably pay those kinds of bills can be a way to start building a positive record.
That could be huge for a lot of people. And AI, how does that fit in?
Well, the source notes that new AI models are being developed for credit scoring. The hope is they can look at a wider range of data points and make more accurate, maybe more inclusive assessments of risk.
Especially for people without much traditional history.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which is really relevant when you hear the source cites. As of May 2025, something like 25 million Americans are considered credit invisible. 25
million, wow. That's a lot of people outside the system.
It really underscores why these strategies and these future innovations are so important for, financial inclusion. There's a massive need for this roadmap.
No kidding. Okay, so wrapping this all up, this deep dive into the source material, it really makes it feel like building credit from scratch, going from invisible to having that financial passport. It's genuinely possible.
It absolutely is.
Yeah.
Like the guy lays out, it starts with those first steps, secured card, authorized user, whatever fits. Then it's all about nailing those big factors, paying on time, keeping utilization low, and just consistency, responsible habits over time.
Yeah. And it's not just about a score, is it? It's fundamental for those big life goals, getting a decent car loan rate, maybe buying a home someday, or just having more financial breathing room.
It really is the foundation. It underpins so much of your financial future.
Which does make you think building that foundation is one thing, but if getting to that really top tier, like 800 plus score, involves, as the source said, decades of history and managing lots of accounts, what does that long middle journey look like? How long does it really take to get solidly good or excellent? And what does maintaining that financial confidence involve beyond just the number? Definitely something to keep mulling over.